So good day po. My name is Trisha Tablante. I'm with Miguel Roy Quinto to present aerodyn- aerodynamic analysis of an asymmetrical airfoil. So our high lift device for this used in the simulation is a Fowler flap. So to start with, discuss muna natin yung simulation properties and parameters na ginamit namin sa simulation. First, analysis type po ay external. Yung fluid, type of fluid is air, flow type, laminar, and turbulent. Ang aming thermodynamic properties ay we just simply use the standard sea level constant. So yung pressure, 101,325 pascals, and yung temperature ay 288.15 Kelvin. So, ang aming sinat na goals ay to get total pressure max, total temperature max, and velocity at x max. So, ang aming airfoil ay naka 4412. So, ayan po ang angle of deflection ay 20 degrees. Okay. So here's our observation at 0 degree angle of attack. So we have three different velocity, 20 meter per second, 60 and 80. Starting with 20 meter per second. So ang na-observe po namin, wait, let me explain muna po kung ano po yung ginamit naming representation to show velocity. So sa velocity po, ang ginamit naming ay contour. So ito po yun. And for pressure naman po, kung makikita nyo yung flow trajectories na yung mga arrows, yun po yung nagre-represent ng pressure. So with at 0 degree angle of attack and at 20 meter per second, mapapansin po natin yung velocity ay nag-concentrate sa upper streamline ng airfoil. So, nakikita nyo dito yung red part, yan po yung nag-represent ng maximum velocity. So, that's around 24.785 meter per second. Ito po yung max. And for pressure naman po, makikita nyo po ito yung arrows na to na concentrated below the at the lower streamline ng airfoil. And kung mapapansin niyo yung air nag-flow regularly and smoothly sa leading edge. Ito po yung leading edge of the airfoil. So, but however, yung slot naman po where the Fowler flap is placed when retracted, ito po, itong place na to. So, when retracted po, it permits high pressure air from underneath the wing to flow up, and air goes through the gap, creating a higher energy airflow to the upper surface of the Fowler flap. Next po, observation po namin at 60 meter per second, still at 0 degree angle of attack. So since yung ang ating deflection ay 20 degrees, yung surface area po natin is also increased. So what does this indicate? Alam naman po natin na kapag increased po yung surface area and camber or yung curve ng wing, it will produce a greater lift. So since we're using Fowler flap, kita naman po natin since parang na-extend yung ating airfoil, mas lalong lumaki yung surface area ng airfoil natin. So, based po doon, we can conclude na increase po yung ating lift. So, when it comes to pressure, So almost the same naman po, but with greater pressure po at 60 meter per second. So still the same po, since inversely proportional po yung pressure with velocity. Mapapansin natin dito sa baba where more concentrated yung pressure, halos walang velocity or very low lang din. And on the upper surface naman po ng airfoil, since there's greater velocity, so that's approximately 74.660 meter per second, eh almost wala pa masyadong pressure dito. So inversely proportional po yung pressure sa velocity. Furthermore, such larger flap settings are used for the approach to landing. Yung circular movement po or yung eddy is notable under the airfoil where the flap is placed when retracted. So dito po, hindi ko siya ma-zoom. Ayan. Diyan sa bandang yan. Kapag nire-retract yung airfoil, nakikita nyo dyan, hindi man masyado visible sa presentation, pero pag zoom in yan, there's a circular movement po ng air. So still at 0° angle, angle of attack at 80 meter per second. Ang aming observation po is mas naging greater yung velocity. So kung kanina around 74 meter per second lang, ngayon umabot na ng 99.712 meter per second dun pa rin sa upper surface ng ating airfoil. And when it comes to pressure also, it also became greater than the previous velocity. So still it's the pressure is still concentrated below the airfoil. So sa lower streamline lang ng airfoil nag-concentrate yung pressure, and visible pa rin dito yung eddy dun sa part ng where nagre-retract yung ating Fowler flap. So at 80 meter per second with 0° angle of attack, the airfoil remains laminar. Airflow remains laminar from the leading edge up until the trailing edge of the airfoil. So yun lamang po for 0° angle of attack yung aming observation. Next slides will be presented by Miguel.
Ayun po. So for next slide po, please. Ayun, so para sa 15 degrees naman, hindi naman masyado nag-vary kayo ba ng 0 degrees. So kapag inangat natin yung angle of attack, the pressure on the leading edge up to the bottom of the airfoil is notably, this causes the velocity flow on the upper surface of the airfoil to increase. For this associates the relationship of the angle of attack to the lift coefficient as they vary linearly. Kasi nga, kapag inangat natin yung angle of attack, aangat din yung lift coefficient. So yun lang din naman, same lang din siya sa 0 degrees, yun lang pinagkaiba niya. So next po. So sa 60 naman, 60 ms, ang nag-vary lang dito is yung eddy current. So kapag pinabilis natin yung velocity, mas makikita natin na mas lalaki yung eddy current sa baba. So tsaka yung swirl sa baba din, mas visible na siya, which conveys the substantial pressure accumulated underneath the airfoil. So ayun nga, nagiging turbulent flow na siya from laminar. So lastly, for the ATMS, and the pressure, ayun po. Sorry, ayun. So the pressure gradually increases on the lower surface of the airfoil, which is visible naman din kasi ang tumaas na mismo yung value ng velocity at pressure natin. So the area under pressure relationship makes sense since the area beneath the airfoil is way larger than the area above, linearly varying, thereby creating lifts. So, kasi nga inversely proportional yung pressure sa surface, sa point of surface area, which is yung contact pass. So in addition to that, we have observed there is a pressure drop on the gap between the trailing edge and the Fowler flap, which dun sa may bandang gitna, malapit sa dulo, yung makikita natin na may pagka-blue na yung color. So Hence, velocity is significantly increases on that point. So, yun lang po yung na-observe namin for 15 degrees. Thank you
So
po.
that's the end of our observation. Thank you po.